Georgia versus Texas. Top 5 matchup. Georgia on the road. Feel like we just did this with Georgia and Alabama. Georgia has another big-time SEC road opponent coming up in Ole Miss. This is Filmed On Live from UGAsports.com. This is your first time watching us, or if you've been with us since the very beginning of Brent and I doing this together, thanks for hanging out with us. We can't do it without the support of Oconee Gold Barbecue Sauce, ASW Distillery, and Breda Pest Management. We'll show them some love later in the show. We hope that you will as well. I'm Dayne Young with UGAsports.com. Brent Rollins. We've been doing Filmed On Live for quite a long time now. Essentially, we pair the video and the data to kind of tell you what's going on with Georgia Bulldogs football, SEC football, and we have fun doing it. So this is the Texas preview, the scouting report, Brent, of the Texas Longhorns, the number 1 team in the nation, undefeated, and talent all over the board with this team. We're focusing on Texas's offense because it seems like Georgia's weakness right now is mainly on defense. So if you're trying to figure out where the determining factor of this game is, you probably start here.
Yeah, and it's one where, like, most concern, I think, at least from a fan base standpoint for Georgia, that concern is, hey, is Texas just going to hang 40 on us or more? And what's interesting about the game is, at least for me, watching Texas's offense, and I watched about 4.5 or so games. I didn't necessarily watch all of one because it was instantly a blowout, but I've long been a fan of Steve Sarkeesian. And this actually goes back to long ago. And even when you think about offenses that have hurt Georgia's defense, go back to 2020 with Alabama when he was the OC at Alabama and they put up almost 600 yards of offense on Georgia. The way he blends the running game and the passing game together is just, to me, he's one of, if not the best in the game at mastering both that, the blend of run and pass, but also misdirection and all these sort of modern offense things, while also still committing to the run. So it's going to be a tough test for Georgia to slow them down. And they got a lot of playmakers, and let's take a look at exactly who they got.
Yeah, let's run through this personnel real fast, and then we'll talk about what Texas's path to this game has been. Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback. He's only a junior, which it seems like he's been a quarterback in college football since multiple presidential administrations. But the former Ohio State transfer, he's been at Texas for a while now. He is an NFL draft prospect for sure. He is the starting quarterback, but you see Arch Manning has played a lot this year. Some because they're grooming him to be the next quarterback, some because of injury, where he had to play the entire Mississippi State game.
Yep. It's you could tell there was rust with Ewers coming back against Oklahoma, but I think you're going to see a lot less of that this week against Georgia.
In terms of their skill guys at running back, some injuries preseason that hampered this room, so it's a running back by committee. The 3 guys you'll mostly see: Trey Wisner, Jaden Blue, Jarek Gibson. And receiving wise, there's multiple guys here, but I would say the most explosive ones: Isaiah Bond, the Alabama transfer, Ryan Wingo, true freshman. Here we go, another top 5 matchup with a true freshman receiver that's all world, and then Gunnar Helm, the tight end. Probably throw Matthew Golden in there as well because he does have 3 touchdowns. The key thing here to me, Brent, look at how these touchdowns are spread out among these skill guys.
I think that's the hallmark, and I think Kirby Smart said it in one of his press conferences talking about the game, but somehow in a way, there's a lot of similarities to Georgia and Texas. It's because that, unlike Alabama in 2020, when it was Devontae Smith and what was it, Waddle, like it was those 2 guys and who got the majority and lion's share of the targets. Now with Sark, it's much like Munkin and then now Bobo with Georgia. Everybody's a target. If you're eligible, you're potentially going to get the football. And I think that's actually the hallmark of their offense is, and there's one play specifically that we're going to show that speaks to that, but is you have to defend both sides of the sort of formation indoor field. It's not like you can, minimize some of the things that are happening on one side of the field because of what they do or because of, hey, we're always going to this guy or something like that. Everybody's a threat all the time.
Quickly, just a schedule note for these 2 teams. We know Georgia's path at this point. A close loss at Alabama after getting down 28-0. Coming back, getting a lead, but then giving up the late touchdown to Ryan Williams. Did have the opening game win over Clemson that looks better by the week as Clemson continues to run through the ACC at this point. Not a toughest part of the ACC, but we'll see where that winds up for them. For Texas, it starts with Michigan, which is a much diminished team that has a lot of passing struggles, but Texas went into the big house and dominated that game in pretty much all facets. So I don't, this is not Michigan of last year. That's still an impressive win. And then Red River rivalry, we've seen even last year where I think Texas lost to a team that it was better than in Oklahoma last year.
Yep.
Nowhere near that this year. Completely handled, could have been worse, could have picked the score.
Should
So
have been.
Texas has handled its business up to this point, and it's still accurate to say it hasn't seen a team that has the talent that Georgia has.
Correct. And then hey, don't forget the gauntlet that they're in right now. So you got rivalry game with Oklahoma, Georgia coming up this week, and then they got to go to Vandy next week.
You know how tough it is to play at Vandy these days.
I mean, it's a thing. It's becoming a thing. But what's interesting for Texas, if you think long term, and I think you're at the end, by the way, instead of the beginning. But
I realize
is get through this, at Vandy. Obviously, you should take care of business at Vandy. Florida at home, you should take care of business. Arkansas on the road, okay, they've done some things at home. Kentucky at home, you're better, which would set up potentially a monster matchup against Texas A&M, who it's been exactly how many years it's been since they played each other, but that would be big time, a massive matchup in College Station that could have. I mean, there's potential that's the, they take care of, if they beat Georgia here, that might be an SEC championship game rematch. Like they play 1 week and then play again in the SEC championship game. Who knows? Because of where A&M is right now. But this is it. This is a obviously huge game for both teams, and one that will potentially swing a playoff seeding and or berth, or we might just see it again in the SEC championship game.
Quick note too, both these teams have recently played Mississippi State. We know that Georgia had a lead, let Mississippi State get back into it, didn't seem quite as impressive. Texas handled that game as well, but it was 14-6 up until the last play of the third quarter. So that was not a blowout the entire time either. Most people will tell you Mississippi State's the worst team in the SEC, and I would say Texas didn't perform its best against them. Georgia didn't perform its best against them. Take that for what it's worth.
The interesting thing when we look at some of these plays and look at some of the things that they do is, like this game against Michigan, they won the game on third down. They were 10 of 16 on third down in the game. Some of it was early. First drive was throwing, and you were doing sort of masterful work in the pocket, creating plays, but they also run. And what's interesting to me is primarily watching them run. They are more of a oftentimes zone team to the right side of the field, because at left tackle they have a first round draft pick dude, Banks, letting him sort of cave in lines, things like that. But to the left side, a lot of times they do the gap counter type schemes. We'll show some of that there. But there's always RPO action off of this. There's always misdirection. Oftentimes there's levels of jet fakes that, like we've talked about throughout the season with Georgia, it's been an issue. Eye discipline especially at the second level with linebackers has been an issue for Georgia's defense. So while they've seen some of it with Miss State, with Kentucky, Auburn, even to an extent, they're going to see it, just much better version of it with Texas this week.
Yeah, big lanes created here. This is Trey Wisner on this run. Quinn Ewers not a running threat. In the event that Georgia were to see Arch Manning, more of a running threat.
Much more. I think Ewers in the last 2 years has negative yards on design rushes. But I will say the right guard here kind of does a nice little interesting technique. But the other part right there, a little bit of but the other part, watching them, and you see 65 there at center, fifth-year player, really good, solid center for them. When you watch them consistently, they do what I consistently talk about on this channel, is head and butt in the play, knowing where the ball's going, getting body placement and understanding where the ball's going to give running backs lanes. So they technically very much a good offensive line. Pass pro, really good. The run block, I think they're in the middle towards the bottom of the pack in PFF run block grade, and maybe into sort of lower half of the Power 4. So it's not like they're completely dominant in the run game, and they use more scheme to create things in the run game.
One could say we're a big head and butt channel here. Ewers to Wisner in the passing game. Although this is one of those that Kirby would call an extension of the run game.
Well, it's also just them playing man and not accounting for the back, and that's one thing that you see a lot in the tape is the back and the tight end. You have to account for the back and the tight end in the passing game. Here they play man and are late and or don't account for the running back. You look at
they definitely account for the tight end.
Yes. Blue 23 is they're third on the team in targets with 23 targets. Wisner here has 14 targets. They've combined for 22 receptions, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like they are consistently a part of the run game or the passing game. Have to account for them.
One thing you told me before we started recording is one of the hallmarks of Ewers, especially, and this is a Sark thing too, but with Ewers, this ball's coming out quick. So Georgia is not going to have, there will not be a lot of time to adjust. This is going to be an instinct and react.
Yep, and tackle. And we're going to get to that in a little bit, but tackling is going to be big in this game.
Yep. And let's get to Ewers. This is a trio on this drive. I think they're all on the same drive, but it's 3 plays in a row of Ewers to Matthew Golden.
His pocket movement and and you heard all the draft guys just sort of raving after this game that elevate and sort of watch this game with him. The feel for where the space was and what was going on around him, and then obviously accurately throwing the football. Here's another third down, by the way. Like I said, 10 of 16 on third down in this game. You watch him, and when he has to move, more often than not, he's actually more accurate. And it looks like he's more comfortable free flowing in the pocket as opposed to an in structure, just quick release guy. But this is, on the run, just a little flick of the wrist and right on the money.
Yeah, perfect.
First
you
down.
Actually even get a little bit of yak out of that just from the catch and the momentum from there.
By the way, also, you've noticed on all these plays, there's some form of, for the most part, motion or shift. They are always consistently among the top teams in the country, at least in the Power 4, in terms of percentage of shifts or motions on plays. And here, it's tackling is going to be, I think, because of how quickly Ewers gets the ball out, it's just a major part of this game for Georgia. Here, instead of bring him inbounds and get a 5-yard gain, 6-yard gain, you get 9.
If that tackle is made there, but it's really down here.
Yeah. And the other thing is pass pro. He's one of the least pressured, him and or Arch, one of the least pressured quarterbacks. They have one of the their team pass block grade is, I think, the highest in the Power 4. I didn't look exactly. I know it's up there. It's in the 90s. So pass pro, really, really good. And obviously Banks at left tackle is as good as it gets, if not the best in the country.
Yeah, and that's schedule-wise, I think that's a good note because if Michigan's good at something, it would be defense. If Oklahoma's good at something, it would be defense. Definitely not their offenses. And so that's a really good sign for Texas to have protected against those two teams in those environments.
In terms of ball out quick, his average time to throw, lowest in the Power 5. The ball is out faster with him in the Power 4 than any quarterback in the Power 4. I think it's like 2.4, I think, in terms of average. But this is just third down, third and goal.
How do you like a rollout throw across your body?
Like just seed. Dude can make some throws. Yeah, that's for sure. And like I said, I actually think he's better when moved versus just sitting in the pocket. Boom. Like
that made him 18 of 26 for 2 touchdowns and a half.
Yep.
If he plays like that, if Georgia doesn't slow him down more than that, then Texas will win this game.
Well, and obviously it's against Michigan. Michigan was inept offensively in that and most of that game. So, but still, masters of misdirection. Like
here's that freshman.
we saw Georgia run this. We've seen it's a trend around college football. And by the way, Ryan Wingo is really good. He's got 2 carries for 80 yards. This obviously being a big one, but Bond's got a couple carries on those reverses. Everybody's a threat. And the thing for me that always is unique is the QBs. Is one of the things that when they're in the pistol, they do a lot of, like, Georgia doesn't, if you watch his movement here, Georgia doesn't reverse out away from where the back is going like this. And they do that consistently on their play action game and then in even their running game too. And it's all that is meant to cause any sort of level of hesitation in the defense, which, by the way, the corner for Michigan here. All right, let's go hit the offense instead of tackle the guy with the ball. Like we talked about that recently. Yeah, that's great. He blows up this receiver, but the guy runs right by him as he blows up the receiver. I think it's 20 for Michigan. Like, boom. All right, let's hit that guy really hard. And there goes the guy who actually has the ball.
Boom. Just take yourself out of the play that way.
I'd rather go tackle the guy with the ball, but that's just me.
You're going to hear
misdirection is a thing, and like I said, Wingo, he's really, really good, especially after the catch.
You're going to hear a lot of praise for Steve Sarkeesian and what he does offensively, and it's all deserved. I will just point out, very similar here to what you saw Georgia do with Anthony Evans, and this would have been Oscar Delp going one way, coming back the other.
Same
Georgia
play.
just did this against Mississippi State.
I think there's two other plays in here that are one that every college football team seemingly now runs, but also a lot of the same stuff that Georgia does as well. So when you're looking at, hey, maybe I've actually, when Kirby talks about a lot of similarities, well, it is. And there's just unique things here. Now, this to me is where he's next level. And it's the quickness of the release in the RPO game. Because same side counter, and then boom, the ball is out. And now you got to tackle. You lean one way, give them any sort of ability to get the ball out, and he is just flicking his wrist, and the ball is out, and Bond is making plays, and you got to tackle. I still think because of the quickness of his release and how typically the ball is out quick with him, because I think a lot of it, much like with Carson Beck, him and Beck are very much the cerebral, hey, I know where I need to go and know where I want to go and know where I should go with the football, so it comes out quick. Now you got to tackle them, hit them, get them down in space.
I'll be curious.
By the way,
to see
Bond, 21 catches for 369 and 3 touchdowns already.
I'll be curious to see how aggressive Georgia is with its defensive backs. One with RPO game, but then two, we even saw this in the first play against, was it Auburn? Coming off the edge and throwing right over the top of it. It was one of the recent games. I forget which.
Yeah, Alabama too. Alabama. Quickly, where you blitz, they fill the void. One question, just if I asked you, hey, who's been a worse tackling team? If it's Georgia versus anybody, who would you likely say? Given how much we've talked about Georgia's tackling issues over the past, say, 3-4 weeks, you would likely say Georgia.
Yeah, before today I would have said that, but then in chatting with Reese Davis on an exclusive interview that you can get on this channel, Jim Don and I chatted with him. He had said that he read some of the belly aching about Georgia tackling, and they started looking at stats on it and said, yeah, there's a couple guys that aren't wrapping up like they should, but it's not a super problematic issue.
So if you look at missed tackle percentage, not total missed tackles, but just percentage of opportunities and missed tackle percentage, these two teams, exactly the same.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't been great. They haven't been single digits, which is what Georgia's historically been. It's right around 13% or so, but it's about the same.
Yeah. Again, Georgia fans should know Isaiah Bond very well after last year's game versus
SEC championship.
Yes. And here he is again. Second
again, motion. You have to adjust. You have to account for motion. You have to account for bunches. Does this look familiar? Swing out with the back there, quick from one of the two receivers there, and then a deep route. The other guy's running a corner route that you can't see in the screen. And it's, hey, if they play up the field on the screen or on the swing stuff, you throw it over their head. If not, you check it down. You got a lead blocker. Georgia did this recently with ETN, like same sort of stuff. And like I said, their backs, the tight ends, always have to account for them.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. You don't see Texas get in third and long situations a whole lot because they take what they get from the backs and the tight ends in that way.
And they're also very balanced just in terms of run pass, and they try to stay out of those situations. And when you do things like this in the RPO game, you're typically going to be right. That's ball placement here is with the guy right in his face. That's pretty sick, actually. Low and where it should be with that right there at his hand.
And that's two in a row there, or not two in a row, but two in this sequence that we've seen of just very much a flick of the wrist. Not even a whole body into it. Like this is someone that's thrown a football for a long time,
and has messed around throwing the football. I think Like it's just very loose, very, very quick, very natural.
Yeah, to some a lot of the QB experts that I see say sometimes the footwork is too lazy, and
Yes,
sometimes if
and
you can flick it like
especially in a
that,
clean pocket.
yeah.
I think that's why I think he's oftentimes better when it's either really fast like this or he's on the run, because then it's just natural throwing.
This
All
is
right,
a
so
4th and 3 here, and this is
a couple different things with this. One, bond in those situations, but two, you've got motion you got to deal with, and look at the concept. This is mesh rail that we show UGA. If it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4, 4th and 3, short yardage in the passing game, they're going to run this mesh rail concept where you got the two crossers, the over the ball route, cross there, outside guy coming over the ball, and then you got the back leaking out. Like, you have to be ready to cover this zone man, however you want to choose to cover it. But it's a concept that they frequently do in these situations. It's one that Georgia frequently does in these situations, because ideally it's something that works against man. You get some natural picks. Against zone, you find holes. It's why it's run all over the place in college football, but you see it consistently with their offense as well.
I remember Bruce Feldman told a story. I think he was like coaching youth football or something for one of his family members.
Flag football, I think, was what it was, if I remember right.
And he called Mike Leach and he said, "What do I run in this?" And he said, "It doesn't matter what level it is. If you run short crossers, it's going to be open.
Run mesh."
And that's what this is.
And now the running game, again, as you see, every time, motion. If you're two things. One, the tight end, 85, like, guy is really good as a receiver. He's not that great as a blocker. That's why 81 is in the game. Like, when 81 is in the game, it's like almost 60% run, which he's there as the lead guy. He's a much better blocker than 85. And I think he maybe has like 3 or 4 targets on the season. But if you're looking at, hey, where do I want to run sort of gap schemes where I can get holes? Oftentimes that's those type of schemes running left, because look at 78, just absolute help on the double team, little quick chip, and then up and destroys the backside backer. You get any kind of blocks play side, you're going to have holes running underneath by him. And if you look at the data and how they've run their offense, running left, they're at 7.1 yards a carry, 508 yards, 72 rushes. A lot of stuff up the middle with variations of some of their off a jet, quick hitters up the middle, but running right, only 54 attempts, only 5.8 per carry. So if when in doubt and they want to run the football, they're going to run behind 78.
This is Jarrett Gibson. From what I saw, thought that Jaden Blue was probably the most dangerous of the backs, but they have a trio of 3 that can all gain.
And they all play and they all get it.
Yeah. This gets to Mississippi State, where Arch Manning was the starting quarterback. Again, unless an injury or something happens, I don't anticipate seeing Arch Manning in this game. I think Quinn Ewers is by far the starter, but this is a game that happened, and I think we need to show it.
And I can't remember exact numbers. I know I tweeted them at some point, but yeah, if you look at when Arch is in the game versus when Ewers in the game, the amount of times the ball goes down the field, infinitely higher. Arch's average depth of target is 11 yards. Ewers is 6.2. When Arch is in the game, the ball, he's wanting to push the ball down the field. Still play action, reverse out action, like we've seen. All of these guys are threats. But yeah, if he's in the game and happens to play at some point because of either injury or whatever, the ball is going to get pushed down the field more. And also, he's a much more of a running threat. Yeah.
Still here. This is Jaden Blue, the running back I was just referring to.
So pause this at the snap right here. This is the one that I'm talking about where you have to consistently defend. And Mississippi State actually tries to do this, both sides of the field and the action that's going on because of the RPO game that they have. You've got zone left, and then look at the linebacker playing the tight end leaking out. You've got 2 guys over top of Bond on the bottom of the screen. So that half of their defense is in essence playing this half of the field. And then the movement you get on the left side of the field, you make one mistake at linebacker, look at the hole that you get. Like, that's a crater. I think I'm getting 5.
Oh, you're getting more than that, buddy. Give yourself some credit.
No, I think I'm still just getting 5 there.
Oh, you're not doing the basketball league that you were doing at some point?
Nah, probably not anymore. But still, just because you have to consistently defend both sides of the field, both actions that are going on each side of the field, it creates the potential for them to hit a lot of things just right up the gut on you, or if you over pursue, cut back lanes, things like that. Because that's a great job by the center.
Well, and again, realize that you are not seeing someone hold the ball in the pocket and figure out what to do here. So if Georgia fans are leaving this game wondering, still not getting any sacks or anything, it's going to be hard in this game to do that.
And the other thing I think that pause it at the handoff. Like, so right there. The other thing that I think that they do phenomenally well, Ewers does well, Arch does it well, and I think it's obviously coached well, is watch the fake after that. They always pull back quick if it's not a run with Arch, but they always pull back quickly into that throwing motion to at least give the illusion of maybe I've pulled this for the RPO game. And it's just every now and then you see it on tape where one hesitation, or I'm going to the play and then half step of hesitation. And that half step of hesitation oftentimes creates holes. But they do a very good job of carrying out the RPO fakes.
This is a really tough situation to be in here because you see that hole developing right in front of you and you're taught to keep things to the inside because you have more help there. But actually, you don't. Like, there's not more help coming in that situation. So that's just very well designed. Now we get to Oklahoma.
Got to be able to defend bunch formation, and it's so many different things out of the bunch formation. This is one where I think been playing Ewers hits this 10 times out of 10, but it's early in this game, and he missed. He had the interception on I think the very first drive, overthrow. He had this sort of flick of the wrist where he's got a little pressure in his face. Also, by the way, footwork is just not good. So this, in terms of thinking about what Georgia has to account for, you better getting used to playing the bunch and know who the threats are and who they want to push the ball down the field to in the bunch. Because if not, they'll screen you to death if you play back off of it. Because the screen game is a big part of what they do. You get a little bit of pressure here in his face off over the right guard. And I will say, if you're looking at any sort of area of, I wouldn't say it's a weakness, but I would say it's at least an area of where I would potentially attack the right tackle. To me, while like if you look at draft boards and things like that, I see his name consistently up there. They're all really good in pass pro. He's the one who I would potentially attack. He's got like 8 penalties already, so still very good, but that's the potential hole.
Here's a 3rd and 5 play. This goes to DeAndre Moore Jr.
Again, a little bit of pressure in his face, evades it. It's not like he's looking to run. He's moving to throw and then throws an absolute dot on the sideline. Like, this is just the only spot it can go.
Yeah, I mean, when he's grooving, he's very accurate, and I think that's what the NFL is going to covet with him the most, is his accuracy as a passer. He's not overly athletic. There are guys that have more arm strength, but in terms of just ease of throwing, Ewers definitely has that.
And the interesting part about the legs and the running, like you say, last year, and I know he'd kind of slimmed down and tried to look quicker, more so be part. I think he had over a couple hundred yards in scramble yards. He's got 23 yards in scramble. Like, he's moving to throw and not necessarily moving to run. I think he might actually, if it's there, bust out and get first downs with his legs if you let him get out of the pocket. But more often than not, when he's pressured, his average depth of target almost doubles. His passing grade goes up. It's because the ability to look downfield and make throws like that.
Definitely need to make sure that we highlight Gunnar Helm because he's a tough matchup.
So the last 2 plays are, when you look at him, both data and then also because the data matches the tape. That's what people always frustrate me. Like, PFF is people who watch film and tape. That's literally how everything comes about. But when you blitz him, he knows where his answers are, and he knows where his answers are very quickly. So blitz, boom, free rusher, doesn't matter. Then you got to tackle. Like, his passing grade, his highest passing grade this season, when you look at the splits, is against the blitz. 77.4 passing grade against the blitz, 70% adjusted completion, 0 turnover-worthy plays against the blitz. He knows where his answers are, and then you got to tackle. And 85, by the way, as a receiver, very impressive.
Although on this one, I'd argue this is more open.
Yeah.
But this is a matchup deal, and you go to your guy. I get it.
And you go quickly, get the ball out. 21 catches, 23 targets, 311 yards. Like I said, not great as a run blocker. One of the worst on their team, actually, in terms of grading, but very good as a receiver.
Yeah, very reliable.
And they showed it a little too early on this play, and they showed it a little too early on the next play. Because the next one, the last one we're going to show, you show it early like that, and he knows he's got a quick answer on the slant. Oh, and then 5 says, 5th gear, quickly.
Yeah, so we're talking.
Yep.
Hit it
Lets
there.
the clear. Lets the inside guy clear. Comes under, and then it's just
catch away from the body.
He's physical too, by the way.
Yeah,
he's very physical. Tough to bring down.
Wingo's a guy that Georgia wanted badly in recruiting. Ended up at Texas.
Missouri was also in on that, right? Isn't he from Missouri, I think, or something like that?
Yeah, I think everybody wanted him, frankly.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I was telling you earlier,
Smith, Ryan Williams, those guys are making a lot of plays.
If you did a fantasy draft of just like taking receivers right now in college football, you might pick 3 true freshmen to start that conversation. Maybe Ibuka at Ohio State too, because he's really good.
Yep.
But yeah, at least in the top handful of receivers are 3 true freshmen. There may be more, but the 3 that I've seen a lot of, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State, and then we've seen Williams at Alabama, and then Wingo at Texas. They're all fantastic.
From St. Louis. I thought so. I thought he was from Missouri. Just when you think about the totality of what Texas has done offensively and where Georgia might, the matchup for me, one is I actually think his ability to get him getting the ball out quickly helps Georgia, because pressure is not something that they get consistently unless it's 3rd down, especially on the early downs. Then it becomes about tackling. The other part is I think Georgia, how Stackhouse and Christian Miller are playing on the interior, you don't see, as long as you don't get really bad eye discipline on the second level, creating holes, massive holes, I think they're going to be able to hold up at least between the tackles in the run game. So then it's the most interesting thing to me is Sarkeesian going to see Georgia's secondary as the weakness that I can just attack this down the field and sort of in a way purposely, hey, we're not going to get pressure on 1st and 2nd down. We're going to run play action, and we're going to push routes down the field. That's where if they hit those, and if they do that, which I think he will, by the way, they hit them, this is where it could get funky for Georgia, and Texas can get very much rolling. But as long as they defend the play action really well on early downs, I think this can be a game where it's just back and forth. To me, this feels like an Ohio State, Georgia type game where it's back and forth, first team to 30 kind of thing. Texas's defense is really good.
So that's
I think it can be attacked.
We didn't pull any plays of them. Just quickly a recap of what you think of Texas's defense, and then how Georgia's positioned to try to attack that based on what we've seen from Georgia's offense.
Their interior guys are good. 88-45, really good. Colin Simmons, the true freshman, very good off the edge. Just natural feel for pass rush. Solid. They're solid everywhere. The thing I think in terms of where Georgia will attack is right around the hashes and between the hashes. In the middle of the field, Texas's linebackers play very aggressively. And I think you're going to see, as long as Georgia can protect, I think you're going to see Carson Beck attack the middle of the field very frequently.
Could see some Lawson Lucky sneak in there. Dylan Bell attacks that a lot.
Really any of their receivers.
Yeah, probably love it more than even Dylan Bell. But I think from what we saw from Georgia's passing game, both second half against Alabama and then what you saw in some of the deep shots against Mississippi State, there's something to build off of there. My only worry for Georgia is that if you do get in a shootout situation, like you're saying, and you're saying in the 30s, I'm even saying, what if it gets beyond that into like, sure enough, we're in the 40s.
Like Alabama, basically. First one to 40.
Yeah, one of those kind of games. Carson Beck, when he's throwing 50 times a game, you're going to have a couple in there that just can be game killers. And how do you avoid that? You even saw that it wasn't a game killer, but the one in the end zone against Mississippi State.
Yeah, well,
you throw that much, it's going to happen.
You've seen it recently from both quarterbacks. And now not as much, I think, with Ewers just because he hasn't played as much, but whoever, obviously that always matters in these type of games. Whoever takes care of the football, turnovers, it's the number one indicator of who wins. Independent of that, it's one where can Georgia tackle in space? If they tackle in space and you set up third downs, I think you can get them off the field more so. If not, you're in trouble.
You are seeing some consistency from some Georgia defenders that I think is very encouraging. Chaz Chambliss probably coming off the two best games of his career, or at least among the two best games that I remember seeing. When you look at Xavier McLeod coming in and being a contributor on the defensive line, you just see some growth in some of the players. Secondary, we'll see. Mississippi State put some things on tape that I think Sark will try to expose. How does Georgia respond to that? Personnel change. That's probably the first big matchup to see how quick is Texas willing to take shots over the top to try to test exactly what Mississippi State just did.
I know if I'm Sark, I'm doing it early. Like first, second drive, I'm play action and finding ways to just get one-on-one matchups and go down the field with the football and just seeing. Because if I do that and I can open up everything at that point.
I need to mention our partners that support Film Don't Lie from UGAsports.com, and I'm starting with ASW Distillery. Why? Because for over a year now, I've been telling you that if you're buying a vodka that starts with the letter T, Tito's.
Which, by the way, if there's some Texas fans watching, they might not enjoy our sponsorship, but sorry.
Look, it's a good product anyway, ASW Distillery, but what I'm saying is Tito's has given a lot of money to the University of Texas. Fine. Okay. Georgia fans that are watching, you're probably not wanting your money to go from you through Tito's to Texas, right? I would assume that's the case. Well, ASW Distillery, based out of Atlanta, is founded. 5 of the 6 founders are Georgia grads. They like to say that they are distilled by dogs. Anytime that you buy Hunker vodka or Hunker bourbon, which is brand new out this year, you can start to find it disseminating around the state and around the country. It's fantastic. I have a bottle I've been sipping on the post-game overreaction show. Anytime you buy that, some of the proceeds go to Classic City Collective, which is Georgia's NIL efforts. That's an easy way to make a change that you get a really nice vodka or bourbon, and then it's something that helps your Bulldogs if you're a Bulldogs fan. So that's the choice you get to make here anytime you go to wherever you buy your spirits. Regardless if you're a Georgia or you're a Texas fan, you need some good barbecue sauce, and we know that that's a popular thing out in Texas. It's a popular thing here in Georgia too. Oconee Gold BarbecueSauce.com is where you can use the promo code Film Don't Lie, get 20% off of your order. And I just think you need to get all of them. Check it out.
And I feel like Texas fans would be willing to try it, right? They
sure
just see something different, do a little something different.
Yeah.
Promo code Film Don't Lie, 20% off.
Compare it to what you do out in Texas and see if you like it better. It's
more
a great product.
Based sauce.
Yeah, I would say mustard heavy on these, at least a few of them, but I've had a few. Breda Pest Management, the official pest control of the Georgia Bulldogs. They protect Sanford Stadium. They can protect your home too at BredaPest.com. This is the new world we're in, Brent, where it feels like once a month you have the game of the century if you're in the SEC. And Georgia's going to be involved in a lot of these in the future. But when you start looking at these recruiting rankings over the past few years, Georgia's up there, Alabama's up there, Texas is up there. So Texas is in this pantheon now. Haven't won a national championship in recent years, but they're in the conversation. You even see what they did in college football playoff last year. First year in the SEC, they're one of the best teams in the SEC by far. This is a Titan versus a Titan.
Yep, and that's when you have matchups like that, I think you're going to get a great game. Just I feel like this is going to be very much like what we saw last weekend, Oregon, Ohio State, where it's feeling out and then back and forth, and then all right, who makes a play at the end, or which to me is the theme of college football this year, which is who screws up the least.
I thought it was interesting too that Kirby Smart said that he and Steve Sarkeesian take an annual trip in the offseason. So these are buddies at this point. This is not budding rivalry that has happened here. And that's not unique. I mean, a lot of these coaches are friends with each other. I think Kirby and Jeff Lebby are on nice terms too, from what it sounded like.
And to the Texas folk, which I'm assuming Mr. 512 there is one of those. Appreciate you joining, and we'll do this on Sunday night. We'll likely as long as your travel plans don't get messed up.
Yeah, I'm coming back from Boston, but
we will do this reviewing the game on Sunday night.
Plan to do that live on Sunday night. Matthew Goodwin, you saw me at Cali and Tito's. You should have said hello. Hey. I'm friendly.
Always.
I was hanging out with my buddy Jack. So yeah. The next time you see me around Athens, say hello. Yeah, that's fun. Thanks for letting me know that you saw. Hey, this has been Filmed Up Live from UGAsports.com. If you like what we do, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are the most popular one that covers the Georgia Bulldogs, and we continue to grow and have a lot of fun doing it. So if you like what you've seen here from our Texas preview, as Brent said, return on Sunday night. We'll have some live recap of Georgia versus Texas, and then Georgia goes into the bye week. Will those vibes be riding high after upsetting the number one team in the country,
or licking their wounds,
and trying to figure out how in the world do you have a path to a playoff from there? We'll all learn together. Thanks everybody for watching Filmed Up Live from UGAsports.com.